There's one thing that every single person, whether you have an attorney or not, needs to know how to do before you go into your restraining order hearing, and that is answer the judge's questions. Because judges in these hearings very often do ask questions, and unless you're prepared to answer them, you're not prepared to go into your restraining order hearing. I don't care if you have the best attorney in the world. The judge might ask you questions and you are the one who has to answer, not your attorney. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to be prepared for that. My name is Veronica. I'm a domestic violence restraining order defense attorney, and I help people put their cases behind them so that they can enjoy their lives and their freedom. I'm also the creator of a course where I teach you everything that you need to know to win your restraining order hearing, and all of my best tips, tricks, and hacks. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can find a link to your free first class in that via the description box down below. And again, in this video, I am going to be explaining how to answer a judge's questions at a restraining order hearing. Okay, you can expect the judge to ask you a question when it's your time to give your side of the story. When it's the other party's time, so when the petitioner is explaining their side of the story and they get to go first, the judge is not going to ask you, the respondent, to pipe in with your side of the story. You definitely shouldn't do that. So instead it's going to be when you are explaining something. So you're going to be perhaps in the middle of saying something, perhaps in the middle of a sentence, and asks a question. The very first thing that you need to do is close your mouth. Stop talking. You cannot interrupt the judge. Don't interrupt the other parties either, but the judge can interrupt you. And your job is to let the judge interrupt you, because the outcome of the restraining order hearing is up to the judge. And if the judge has a question, the judge thinks that it's more important, and it actually is more important, than whatever it is that you were trying to say. So you stop talking. Now it's time to listen more carefully than you've ever listened to anyone in your entire life. Listen extremely carefully to what the judge is asking you. And then think about, and do this very quickly, think about why the judge might be asking you this question. The reason why I want you to think about why the judge is asking this question is because you want to make sure that you give the correct response. And I'll give an example of what is the incorrect response in a second. Sometimes the judge will ask questions because they want more details. For example, maybe there was some sort of physical altercation and the judge wants to slow down and go step by step and see if your story makes sense. Maybe they want clarification on something. Perhaps they were confused by something that you said, or they were confused about something that the other party said if they've already testified, and they want to get an explanation from you on that. Maybe they're asking about the layout of a room where some sort of incident took place, for example. Sometimes the judge just wants to get a straight, direct answer from you, either confirming or denying the other party's claim. Sometimes the judge will say, so you're saying that you've never struck the petitioner. You never pushed the petitioner down. You don't know how the petitioner got that bruise on her face. That's an example. Perhaps your testimony is dragging on. That's another reason for the judge to ask a question, and the judge wants to move the case along. So maybe you're going on and on about the history of your relationship, and the judge is thinking, we have 20 more cases to get to after this. So the judge asks you a question that pushes you way ahead in your timeline or onto another topic that the judge feels is more important for the judge to make a decision. Now, it's important, if this happens, for you to realize, don't go back after you answer the question and try to keep talking about the same thing that you were talking about before that the judge has tried to push along. Make sure that you get to the point. The judge is giving you a clue with their question, and you need to do your very best to try to pick up on those clues, because those clues are typically the things that are going to make the difference between you winning and losing your hearing. Sometimes the judge will ask you a question as a test, and I told you I would give you an example of how not to answer a question, or when a question can be answered in more than one way. Okay, so recently I was watching a restraining order hearing, waiting for my case to be called. This was civil harassment restraining order hearing by one neighbor against the other neighbor. And there was testimony that the petitioner had called the respondent, had actually yelled to the respondent that he was an effing D-bag, but used the actual words. There had also been testimony that the respondent was sending a lot of emails to the petitioner's landlord complaining about very petty issues involving the petitioner. So, this evolves into a dispute. Anyway, the judge asked the respondent, why do you think that the petitioner would call you an effing D-bag? And he answers the judge and says, well, I think that he's not really happy with himself. He lives in a basement apartment. His wife left him. He's not doing well financially. He said it in a much meaner way than I'm explaining right now. And I was watching the judge's face, and I don't know why the respondent couldn't see it. I think anybody watching this could see that he was losing before our very eyes with this one answer. Because really, what the judge was looking for here is for the respondent to say, well, because I sent all those emails. I mean, I understand he was probably annoyed that I was sending the emails, like this created a rift between us. If he had said that, then he actually had a chance to win, but he didn't, and he lost because he revealed something about himself there. And the judge actually explained that he had a lack of insight. Basically, he can't understand how the situation looks from the outside. So if the judge asks you a question like that, it might be a test, and this is not the opportunity to vent about the other party. It's definitely not, no matter what the question is. The judge might also be asking you a question because the judge believes that you were inconsistent. And I've seen people lose their hearings because of this too. It's obvious that the judge is asking about something that they said that doesn't make sense with something that they said later on in their testimony. And the judge is trying to get them to clarify, because sometimes when that happens, there is an explanation for it. Sometimes there was just confusion in the testimony. Sometimes there's some detail that isn't readily apparent that makes it not actually inconsistent. And inconsistencies are a red flag. Inconsistencies mean a lie, because when you're telling the truth, you might not remember some details, but typically most of the details are going to be the same. Or you might say you don't remember some of them, but typically most of the details will be the same. So the judge is basically giving you an opportunity to explain that, because the judge is thinking this is inconsistent. And they might say, well, why did you write this in your declaration that you submitted to the court when you're saying something different today? And you need to use that opportunity to explain what it is. If you were mistaken, then you can say, actually, I think I did remember it better when I wrote the declaration. I'm a little nervous, Your Honor. I'm sorry. And then you can get past it. But if you are obtuse and you don't understand what the judge is asking you, then you might squander that opportunity. And if you do that, the judge is also going to think that you're evasive. So now you have two strikes against you. You're inconsistent and you were evasive. And then finally, the judge might be trying to challenge you. The judge might just be asking you, and this is, kind of in the category of test as well, ask you some hard questions. So be ready for that. Okay, so the judge has asked you a question. You have immediately stopped talking. You listened harder than you've ever listened to anything in your whole life. You thought about why the judge might be asking you this. Now what you need to do is, if it's a yes or no question, your answer must begin with yes or no. There are maybe some exceptions to this where you say that's partially true, for example. If the question can be fully answered with yes or no, then you should stop there. If it needs an explanation, that's okay. But what I see all the time, you can see the judges getting so impatient, thinking about everything that they have on their calendar, all the cases that they have to get through, and getting annoyed. They ask a yes or no question, and then the witness goes on and on and on and on and gets inspired and starts even talking about something else. Sometimes they forget what the question is and they say, I'm sorry, what was the question? After they've talked for 2 minutes. No joke. And finally, if you don't understand the question, then also say, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Is what you're asking for, and then repeat what you think it is. Ideally, you have some idea of what it is, and you can repeat your understanding of it. That way you're not accidentally answering the wrong question and giving the judge a wrong answer, and the judge thinking that you're meandering and going on to a different topic or being evasive when you're actually not. Look, you can keep binge watching YouTube, hoping to find the answers as to how to win your restraining order hearing, or you can get them served to you on a silver platter, which is exactly what I do in my course. So if this is something you're interested in, you have a restraining order hearing coming up, then I encourage you just take the free first class. You have literally nothing to lose. You can find a link down below. And I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.